welcome Amber Guyton, founder of Blessed Little Bungalow and the familiar face on Homeworthy. She's here to talk about what really makes partnerships work and how to grow brand collaborations in a way that feels authentic. A space you know really well. I'm so happy to see you. I love the stripes.
We were matching yesterday.
We had our greens on. I feel like you've got a little Homeworthy green on.
You know, I did it for you guys.
I just want to brag about your Homeworthy tour for a moment.
All right.
It has been a massive, here you are on camera, your beautiful face. It has been a massive success.
Yes.
Almost 6 million impressions since it's aired.
Wow, okay.
The most wonderful comments. And I don't know, I think that people just really love your sense of style.
I still have people stop me or send a message on Instagram like, I started following you because I saw your Homeworthy episode. So years later, I'm still getting stopped in the grocery store.
Are you really getting stopped in the grocery store?
Yes. So thank y'all for the opportunity.
Well, we're so pleased to have you. Let us know if you redecorate because we'll come back and do it.
There have been a few updates. I have wallpaper on the ceiling now in the kitchen, and I have Café Appliances, my friends at Café Appliances that are here, and one of y'all's sponsors is in my kitchen. But a couple of tweaks. Yeah.
But I feel like as a designer, are you always kind of tinkering?
Yeah, you experiment in your own house. Sometimes you're thinking about different color palettes and things that you want to change. I also feel like you all recently did a Homeworthy episode. My friend Alvin Wayne.
No, I love Alvin. This is our second now with him.
Yes, and so one thing he said on the latest episode was like, this is the fourth time I've changed my space, and for some people that might feel too aggressive, or they might assume it's wasteful because they think, you're just ripping out wallpaper, and but for me it's like, what mood am I in? What am I trying to feel this time? Same way that people swap out drapes with different seasons and pillows and so on. Like, it's okay. And as designers, we can't wait to change things up.
You're so funny. And I'm like, if I have to change, I was like, I after we decorated our apartment, I was like, I don't want to touch this again for a really long time. This took up way too much of my headspace.
Understood.
But one thing that I really loved that Alvin said in his recent tour was that, he's been through a lot recently in life personally, and sort of with every big moment in his life, his home changed as well to reflect where he was personally.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I thought that was kind of a really beautiful sentiment.
Well, your home's your sanctuary, right? Like, you want to feel at peace, you want to feel energized, inspired. Like, my office, there's a lot going on. I'm a maximalist.
Yes, I know that.
What I call soulful maximalism. And so, like, the art, maybe there's something, a more inspiring statement art piece that I want to put in my living room over the sofa and just change things up a bit. And you're always, especially as designers, constantly sourcing and seeing new things that you want to play with in your own
You're
home.
like, one for me, one for the client.
Absolutely, yes. I'll take that ottoman too. Thank you very much.
Okay, let's talk for a minute about moving into your home, because I think there's a really great story here. Your mom said something funny to you after you moved in. You had only been there for you hadn't been there long.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to mess up the story, so you tell us the story.
Sure. So when I started Blessed Little Bungalow back in 2016, in 2015, I had recently moved to San Antonio, Texas. So I was in Atlanta, then San Antonio, then San Francisco, then back to Atlanta. But when I got to San Antonio, I was staying in an apartment for I just sold my townhouse in Atlanta, and I was in an apartment, and I was like, I can't do this. I need a house. So I bought a house that was a renovated 1948 bungalow, and the house was pretty much brand new, but I wanted to put my own flavor on it. So I moved in the day I closed. Crazy. And then I decorated and styled the whole house in a week.
This is like a 3-bed, 2-bath home.
Yes.
And your mom came over, and she thought that you were going to be surrounded by boxes still.
My mom and sister and my nephew, who was an infant at the time, came to visit, and they were expecting to help me unpack and all, and they walk in, and they're just like, what in the world? There's pictures on every wall, the pillows and rugs, everything's in place. And so my mom was just like, so when are you going to do this for real? And that kind of was like an aha moment. Of course, I had a career in marketing, and that was something that I wasn't about to abandon, but it inspired me to say, okay, let's make this a creative outlet. Let's start a blog, and that's how Blessed Little Bungalow was born.
And you are now full-time. You
Yes.
have left fintech, you have left marketing. This is your full-time career now, which is
Yes.
so exciting.
Crazy.
And have you built a lot of this business through partnerships?
A lot of partnerships. I think the one thing that, like, no one, I mean, I guess some people plan to be a content creator or plan to say, like,
Right.
I want to be the talent and have the TV show and so on. But for me, I wanted to showcase the things I felt were meaningful about home. I feel like design is for all. Doesn't matter how much you make, where you live, how big your house. Like, you want it to feel good just as much as it looks good. So I expressed that in my social media, and over time, Blessed Little Bungalow went from like 12 followers of just family and friends to 156,000 or something, wherever it is now, and YouTube, and it grew so much beyond the blog. And so that authenticity in being myself and showing my unique perspective through interior design, over time, clients came, and over time, partners came as well.
How did you find your own voice in the design world?
I love color, I love pattern, so much of who I am and how I approach design is based on my upbringing. I lived next door to my grandparents for most of my life in rural South Carolina. And so no matter what our means were, home just always felt safe and full of love. And wallpaper was in the mudroom and the breakfast nook in my grandma's house. And the house was completely surrounded by blue and white hydrangeas, and that's like my favorite flower. And so I am inspired a lot by Southern culture, my African American culture, and I just love color. I've always been that girl that just wanted my room to feel like a Crayola box, and so
I love that.
So that's how I design. Yeah.
And as we talk about partnerships, how do you approach it from not only a creative standpoint, which you are, but also it's a business venture. So you've really got to be working both sides of the brain. I mean, what do you consider before engaging with a brand?
Well, it has to be a good fit. I have to feel, would I put this in my own house? Like, I'm not going to force this.
So you're not just a yes to any brand that approaches you. It's really, it's got to be the right decision.
Yeah, I feel like, so for example, Café Appliances is one of my partners here at KBIS, and their perspective isn't just appliances. It's stylish, and is this going to feel like an experience in your kitchen? Are you going to want to spend time in here? And so there's a lot of alignment there with the way we see design. Yes, the technology, sustainability, all that's important, but is it a good fit for the two of us? And then also, like, what is their goal? My marketing background helps me with that storytelling.
Right now with your campaign.
That's a cafe, yes. And so, and then I'm a gold girl, so that's the other thing. I love the medals and being able to interchange. Yes. And so, to me, it's important to know, like, okay, what are your needs as well? Like, is it an awareness campaign? Is it strictly transactional? And how can I help tell a story with my own home, my own designs, or my client spaces that's going to reflect what you're trying to accomplish? And so that's kind of my approach with all my partners.
And how did that partnership come about? Did it come about by being at KBIS last year and going to their booth?
No, well, somewhat. Like, I've always admired Café. My house at the time was full of Samsung, not to cause beef between the appliance wars.
Okay.
But I have a Samsung frame TV and the Samsung washer dryer and all the new appliances in my kitchen. And so naturally I'm like, oh, Samsung has a bespoke campaign. Maybe I should reach out to them. But for me, my approach has always been, okay, who are the top 5 brands that I want to work with, and then who are their competitors too, right? So you keep your eye open, but I've always admired Café's like stylishness. And so I did, my agency was, I believe, in touch with them before, but then yes, we met in person at KBIS last year, and it just kind of
clicked.
like, yes, it bloomed from there.
So how do you create a collaboration that's authentic, but also profitable and aligned with your creative vision? I mean, I feel like that's a lot of asks in one partnership, but I feel like the stars need to align to make it work for everybody.
For sure. I think in interior design, in the beginning, especially as a content creator, everyone wants to just like gift you things. Like,
yes,
so
what are your thoughts on that?
I'll take your sofa, but I can't pay my mortgage with your sofa, right? So it's like, okay, this may be a great fit for my client space. There are some designers, like they may receive gifted or in-kind or trade product and then bill their clients accordingly, so they still are paid in that way. Some people take that approach. Some folks may say, okay, I'm going to refresh my back deck for spring anyway, so Castlery has an amazing outdoor collection. I'm going to reach out to them, and it's a win-win.
It's sort of a trade of goods for content, for product.
Right. So sometimes that makes sense, and then other times there are brand partnerships where they see your value. They see not just your following, but the engagement and what you've been able to produce for other brands. And there are paid campaigns. There's mix of paid and trade. So it just really depends on the fit. And then for me, if I really want to work with that dream brand, then I'm going to be more flexible, or I'm going to be more excited to work with them, especially if it's a good relationship, because you want those brand partnerships to be long-term. You don't want them to just be one and done.
Right. And okay, so how do you secure that? How do you secure a long-term partnership?
It's relationships. I'm an introvert, so coming to stuff like this and like networking all day is like, oh my God, I just want to go. My flight's tomorrow at noon.
You need a nap. You're like, that is the end goal. Tomorrow at noon. I just have to make it to tomorrow at noon.
Yes, but it's like also when you come to places like this, like I'm coming from a place of curiosity. I want to learn about new brands, and so for example, Hoodsley, that's a couple of booths away. Like I was able to interact with them last year. Allison, who's one of their design partners, I was able to meet her at the booth and so on. And then I used Hoodsley for a client project earlier this year. So a lot of it's self-discovery. Some of it is kind of like you're going to a job fair. Here are the 10 people I want to talk to, and then I'll go and exchange cards and meet. But yeah, it has to still be a good fit, because even if it's that dream brand, it may not, the timing might not be right, or maybe they don't have budget, or maybe there's just no chemistry, just like dating.
Right. It's also like that with work and partnerships. But you make a big point and an important point for designers who are looking for the partnership space. This is the perfect place to come, because everybody's under one roof, and you're getting to meet the people who are making those decisions for the brands, the marketing teams.
And KBIS can feel very B2B in some ways and transactional, so there may not be a ton of content creators like walking around. Just like High Point Market, it can feel a little daunting or overwhelming, but you come in and you take it 1 hour at a time. You make sure you stay hydrated, wear your sneakers.
I know you've got your green sneakers on. You're a smart woman. I'm wearing green heels.
Well, you're sitting.
I'm not moving. I'm just sitting here. This is my perch for the week. Now, how do you juggle multiple collaborations at one time?
Just like with client projects. I mean, it's time management, boundaries. For me, I want the partnership to, like, I want to be respected as the creator, right? Like, I don't want to just be dictated to, or here's the script, read this. Like, that isn't an ideal partnership for me. No offense to those that do that, but I want to be a part of the creative process. And of course, with my marketing background, like, I'm already thinking about storyboarding and what is the copy that's going to be written for this. And so my wheels are already turning about that. So if it's planned well, sure, you can do 10 partnerships in a month. Ideally, I wouldn't want that many. And then you also have to think about conflicts of interest and competitive.
If you're in the same category, you can't be promoting two different dishwashers at one time.
So for example,
because then also, sorry to interrupt, but I just had this train of thought. I mean, if you're promoting two of the exact kind of same thing, your audience might wonder, well, wait a second,
you're not as trustworthy.
Right, and that is how important is that?
It's important. So for example, I designed the wet bar at Pfister Faucet's booth here and then last year I did a bath vignette for them. but I also am building a relationship with Delta Faucet. But I'm respectful to each of them. I went to a Delta event this morning. They had a osmosis coffee tasting. It was super fun, right? But I'm going to be very conscious about what I'm posting while here, and like, okay, was this a trade versus in-kind versus paid partnership? What are the stipulations in my contract? Sometimes it's like, 30 days, you can't post another competitor. Like, you just have to be aware of all of that. And even if there are no contractual stipulations, you just want to be respectful and be trustworthy to that brand. You don't want to be like, okay, I'm here with Samsung today and Cafe tomorrow and LG next week. Like, it's not.
And let me just confuse everyone.
Yeah. You want to definitely be respectful, and it's the same with my brand. Like, I want to be aware of the other creators that you're working with. I want to see what they're able to produce, and we all have different perspectives and talents and points of view, strengths or weaknesses, but it's important to know who else you're working with also.
All right, last question before we go.
Okay.
What's one piece of advice you wish you'd had when you were first starting out working with brands? Because this will help other creators, designers in the space who are just getting started with partnerships.
Sure. I would say that what's for you won't miss you. I think it's very important to pitch yourself, have the confidence to walk up to someone's booth, shake their hand, introduce yourself, and so on. But any partnership, even same with clients, anything that I forced or I had a red flag about that I ignored, it usually goes south.
Don't ignore that red flag.
So allow things to happen organically, allow yourself to be chased a little bit, and just know your value and your worth, because my unique perspective and my platform for Blessed Little Bungalow, I know what I offer, I know how to communicate to my following, so trust that. Don't allow a brand to dictate that to you.
That is the perfect parting advice to end our episode.
Yay.
Thank you so much, Amber, for being with
you.
us. And keep tinkering with your house, because we want to come back and do part
Absolutely.
two.
Just say when.
All right, we'll be there.